Hi, it's Saoirse. Tonight I want to talk about I'll Be Gone in the Dark. One woman's obsessive search for the Golden State Killer. And I'm actually filming at night for the first time. Ooh, it's super spooky. I have my spooky interrogation light right here. Sorry if the lighting is awful. Bear with me. Oh, okay. Cat fight. So, this book feels appropriate to talk about it at night. So obviously it is true crime, not crime fiction. It is about, can we get through this? It is about Michelle McNamara and her search, it's in the title, her search for the Golden State Killer. She was not a detective. She wasn't a police officer. She wasn't part of the investigation. But she was always just fascinated by this particular serial killer and finding him. And she dedicated a lot of her life to research that would help find him. So let's start from the beginning here. I became interested in this and familiar with this story because of a podcast that I listened to. And it's my favorite podcast. It's called My Favorite Murder. And if you're not into murdery things, you won't like it. But it's a couple of very funny women who try to take a lighthearted approach to talking about things that are pretty unpleasant. And if you're into true crime, it's very, very entertaining and informative. I love it. So anyway, they were talking a lot about the Golden State Killer last year because this book was published in 2018. And the crazy thing is, he was caught last year. So the book was published earlier in the year, and then I think like mid-year they found him by using something like 23andMe, like a DNA thing where they narrowed down the pool and they figured out it's like probably one of these people, and then they got his DNA and they found it was him after like 30-40 years. Amazing. It's amazing. But the sad thing is, Michelle, after dedicating so much of her life and working on this book, she never got to see him caught because she passed away April 21st, 2016. So she actually didn't even get to finish writing the book. It was finished by, what are their names? I think it's Billy Jensen and Paul Haynes. Tell me I'm right. And also her husband, Patton Oswalt, helped out. Yeah, Billy Jensen and Paul Haynes. So they took all the pieces that she had left working on this book and kind of put them together. And when you do that, things aren't as cohesive as they would be if the author had gotten to finish the whole book herself. So there are parts of the book that you can kind of tell she might have left off here, and then they tried to put it together and have it make sense. And also there's the fact that this book was written before he was caught, so how do you write a book, like she says this, how do you write a book where like the killer isn't caught at the end? Well, I love the way she ended the book. I'm not sure spoilers apply here because, it's a real thing we all know, or maybe we don't all know, but the Golden State Killer was caught, and the case has been very public for many years, so not really any spoilers in here. But I do want to talk about the difference between true crime and crime fiction from a reading standpoint. I have enjoyed in recent years a lot of crime fiction. Not a lot, but I think it started with like Gone Girl and then Dark Places, Sharp Objects, and I loved Girl on the Train. I want to read it again, but I wish I could forget it all and start over. And I mean, I know I forget like details and stuff, but I still remember like the twist. But I would love to be able to just wipe my brain and go read Girl on the Train again. But so the difference for me, I think, I don't know. I almost like listening to and watching true crime more than I like reading about it, I think is my takeaway. Because I really enjoy that podcast. I have always loved watching documentaries about true crime. Reading it, it's a lot of facts, you know, it's a lot of like dates and names and crime scene locations. And I mean, you have to do that. You have to get the facts in there. But she does have a good writing style, and she structures it. It's not completely chronological. Kind of looks like it is, but she jumps back and forth a little bit, and she also throws in parts of her own life, which I actually really enjoyed that probably the most. Like when she gives us a little bit of background into who she is and maybe like why she doesn't say like, you know, I have the authority to write this book because I know everything about criminals. But she definitely gives us like a sense of, okay, we can trust this woman with this story. And you can tell how invested she is in it. It's amazing. I did write some notes this time because, I'm sorry, on the last video, I was just totally rambling. I'm still rambling. I'm not exactly following my notes, but yeah, I've already gone completely out of order. Anyway, so because I listened to that podcast, I got really interested in the case, and the really crazy thing is, I was listening to the podcast because last year I was hiking for 6 months, which I will talk about in another video, but spoiler alert, I hiked the Appalachian Trail last year, and so I listened to My Favorite Murder like 8 hours a day for weeks. And at one point, I was somewhere in Pennsylvania, and I went to a gas station to get some food, and I looked up on the TV, and they had caught the Golden State Killer. Like, it happened while I was on the trail, and I had been listening to the podcast, and then the podcast, you know, blew up, and it was all so exciting, and they had Paul Holes on the podcast talking about it, and he's one of the, he's a criminalist who is really involved with the case, and has a lot of interesting things to say, and he's actually in, like, there's like a 50-page section in this book that is, like, Michelle hanging out with Paul Holes, which I just love. It's fantastic. So, alright, cat wants to be in my lap. Anyway, so it was really, really cool to, like, find out a lot about this case, because I didn't know a lot about it. I don't even know if I knew of it at all, but to find out about it, and then for the whole case to break open, and like after years and years for them to catch the guy, you know, while I was out there like really absorbed in all this stuff, it was really cool. So I was very excited to get the book when I came back. I like how they put all the pictures in the middle. So there's a lot of pictures of the victims, and then there's like creepy drawings and things, like maps that he drew. Scary stuff. Some of the sketches they did of him. And oh, there's Paul Holes. There he is. And then there's Michelle writing, and there's her daughter. It's so sad. That is one thing, like reading this book, it is so sad to think about how she worked so hard on this and she just died suddenly, like really suddenly. She wasn't anywhere near her time. It was shocking. Kind of adds another layer of mystery and, I don't know, creepiness to this book. It just, I don't know, it makes me really sad that she didn't get to see him caught, because, oh, can you imagine all those years that she searched for him. Well, we get to enjoy her book. I wanted to read some quotes that I liked in here. Okay, this is where you get the title of the book. She's talking about this particular victim that he attacked, and it says, "He pointed a knife at her and issued a chilling warning. Make one move and you'll be silent forever, and I'll be gone in the dark." So that's where we get that from. And I had wondered, I was like, what's that random phrase you chose for the title? But it's actually something he said. Very creepy. Really creepy to be filming this at night. Super spooky. And I've been watching that Netflix show, You, so I'm in a very spooky mood. Okay. Next one. Okay, she goes a lot into her total obsession with finding this guy, and she doesn't hide anything about that. You know, she's very open in saying, "I'm totally obsessed. This is all I think about all the time." She said, "I've come now to realize that getting excited about a suspect is a lot like that first surge of stupid love in a relationship, in which, despite vague alarm bells, you plow forward convinced that he is the one." So she goes into a few different people that over the course of the investigation they thought, you know, this could be him. We might have found him. And there's that like, oh, I'm excited, and then disappointment. And like, you know what's going to happen because we know that it ends and he's not caught yet. So you know it's not going to be any of those people, but it's still like, as you're reading it, you're like rooting for her and for it to be that person. Like, she did this one thing that was really amazing. She knew that in one of the attacks that the Golden State Killer had stolen some cufflinks, and she like tracked down some cufflinks that she thought were them in another state and bought them online from like a pawn shop and had them overnighted to her house. And they were real close to the actual ones, but they weren't them. But like that kind of dedication and the hours and hours of research that she did, and like going to the police and trying to get all like the documents that she could get on this case, because I don't want to say that the investigators had given up, but I mean it was a decades old case. So not everybody was still like, you know, let's work it out. Most people were probably thinking the guy's dead by now. But he wasn't. They caught him. Okay. Next. Okay, I love this. She's talking about like how people will convince themselves that nothing's wrong. You know, everything is totally normal in my neighborhood, and even though there's this killer on the loose that is breaking into people's houses, raping people, murdering them, oh, it can't happen to me. So let's see. She's talking about how neighbors are like, you know, we'll look out for each other. She says, "But then you hear a scream and you decide it's some teenagers playing around. A young man jumping a fence is taking a shortcut. The gunshot at 3 a.m. is a firecracker or a car backfiring. You sit up in bed for a startled moment. Awaiting you is the cold, hard floor and a conversation that may lead nowhere. You collapse onto your warm pillow and turn back to sleep. Sirens wake you later." I like that because she's just saying, like, we totally convince ourselves that all these sounds and all these signs and everything we're seeing that is like a total red flag is nothing. It can't be anything. It can't be, because we have to live in this box where everything that happens is what we understand and nothing outside of that can happen. We're in our safe little box. Okay. A couple more. Okay, she says, this is again like kind of a couple quotes ago. It's like that one. As I've said, falling for a suspect is a lot like the first surge of blind love in a relationship. Focus narrows to a single face. The world and its practical sounds are a Wan's soundtrack. Is it Wan or Wan? I don't know. Soundtrack to the powerful, silent biopic you're editing in your mind at all times. No amount of information on the object of your obsession is enough. You crave more, always more. You note his taste in shoes and even drive by his house courtesy of Google Maps. You engage in wild confirmation bias. You project. A middle-aged white man smiling and cutting a cake decorated with candles in a picture posted on Facebook isn't celebrating his birthday, but holding a knife. I love that. It's all about the things that you notice. And when you're, what am I trying to say? You're focused on a particular thing, like she is on finding this guy, then you're going to notice things like a guy with a knife. He's not normal. He's got a knife. He's got to be doing something bad. Whereas other people would be like, oh, he's cutting the cake. Is that all I have? Well, anyway, the way that she ends the book, and again, it's not like a spoiler. It's just if you don't want to hear this is how she ends the book, then tune out for the next few seconds. But she ends it with an epilogue called Letter to an Old Man, and I think is the most fantastic part of the book, where she is directly addressing the Golden State Killer and, talking to him as an old man, because he is now. Back when he was doing this, he was really young, and after all this time, he's aged, and he won't be able to escape the police this time. That's what she's telling him, like, you're gonna get caught. Kind of want to read this whole last page, half page. Humor me. Tune out if you don't want to hear this. A ski mask won't help you now. One victim's phone rang 24 years after her rape. You want to play? A man whispered. It was you. She was certain. You played nostalgic, like an arthritic former football star running game tape on a VCR. Remember when we played? I imagine you dialing her number alone in a small dark room, sitting on the edge of your twin bed, the only weapon left in your arsenal firing up a memory, the ability to trigger terror with your voice. One day soon, you'll hear a car pull up to your curb, an engine cut out. You'll hear footsteps coming up your front walk, like they did for Edward Wayne Edwards 29 years after he killed Timothy Hack and Kelly Drew in Sullivan, Wisconsin, like they did for Kenneth Lee Hicks 30 years after he killed Lori Billingsley in Aloha, Oregon. The doorbell rings. No side gates are left open. You're long past leaping over a fence. Take one of your hyper-gulping breaths. Clench your teeth. Inch timidly toward the insistent bell. This is how it ends for you. You'll be silent forever, and I'll be gone in the dark, you threatened a victim once. Open the door. Show us your face. Walk into the light. What a way to end a book. I love that so much. That's really powerful. And to know now that he did get caught and they did come to his door and he tried to say, oh, I have a roast in the oven. That's really what happened. And they said, don't worry about it. You're coming with us. So, do I have any other thoughts? Do I recommend the book? Yeah. It's I'm not gonna say fun, but it's cool to get into and follow along this mysterious path that led us to the present now with him getting caught. Because for so many years they just had no idea who was doing this. And it's crazy to read about the things that he did to escape detection and all that fence jumping and stuff. And all the close calls, because there were so many times when people had him right there and he ran away. And he actually used to be a cop. That's the really crazy part. They found out his whole history, and I think he was a cop while he was the East Area Rapist. So he had a few names. I think he was first the East Area Rapist, and then I think they also have decided he's the Visalia Ransacker, and the original Night Stalker. And then Michelle McNamara is actually the one who came up with the term Golden State Killer. She named him that. So that's special. So I hope you enjoyed this creepy book talk. Yeah, I would pick up the book if you're so inclined, if you like crime. I did not feel like afraid when I was reading it. I think I'm pretty dead inside, or just, what's the word? When I've overdone it on true crime. I'm immune. I don't know. There's another word. I don't know words. I do. I just can't think of them. Yeah, I like I said, I listen to that podcast and I watch a lot of true crime documentaries, and so I didn't feel like, reading it. I was just like, okay, these are the facts. This is interesting. If you do get a little spooked by things, maybe don't read it alone at night like I did. But do read it, it's good. So for next time, I'm still getting through my January books. Next time I'll talk about The Catcher in the Rye. And this is my copy. I know this is not my fault. Yeah, I'll show you more in the next video, but this is a pretty old copy that I got from my mom. She got it from somebody else when she was in school. It's been through a lot, and the cover, it already didn't have a front, and the back cover just fell off while I was reading it. But anyway, we'll talk about Catcher in the Rye next. I'm super excited. I really liked it. Okay, I think that's that. So, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.